In this video, we're diving into a case that is a heartbreaking journey through missed opportunities, overlooked evidence, and a fight for justice that still echoes today. Let's get started. Margie Foley was helping to look for a lost person. The lost girl was Margie's daughter's best friend, so she felt like she was looking for her own daughter. There was a search for Ebie Steppatch going on, but there was something wrong because only people from the area were taking part. There was no police officer in sight. The search was mostly in Shalomont Park, which is where Ebie's car was found. A large, out-of-the-way park that is surrounded by wooded areas and building sites. Margie and Kaylee were stopped in their tracks as they walked by a rainwater drain only a few feet from Ebie's car. The smell. That was awful. The smell was the same for other people who passed by this drain, which looked like a simple hole. At the time, they did what they thought was best. They asked the cops to come. They must be able to handle things from here, right? But when the cops showed up, they looked at the drain, rolled their eyes, and snubbed the people who were looking for Ebie. They had already searched this area with sniffer dogs, but now people are calling them here, which is a waste of their time. That was it. No one looked into the drain, and nothing happened. That was until 3 years later, when a former police officer would stand in the same place and tell people to dig in the area. Things never went back to how they were after that. He or she was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, on March 31st, 1997. Lawrence and Peter, her parents, had 2 more kids, a boy named Trevor and a girl named Harris. Ebie was going to Little Rock Central High School at the time of the case. Little Rock isn't known for being a safe place at all, but Ebie lived there. Through the years, Ebie's parents finally split up, and Lori married a man named Michael. But this change didn't make Ebie's life too different. She quickly became close with her new stepdad and made him feel like he was part of the family. They were friendly and getting along great, and Ebie was adjusting well to her new life. Many people knew Ebie as a fiery person. If there was something she really wanted to do, she would do it. One of those things was becoming a hairdresser. It looked like she was almost there, but by 2015, she had hit a little trouble. Ebie was 18 years old at this point, and like all young adults, she wanted to be on her own. She left her parents' house and went to live with her grandparents, but she would sometimes stay with friends for long amounts of time. Even though Ebie said her home life was great, it's pretty clear that something was going on, and she wanted to leave. So this brings us to the problem that came up in her life. Ebie quickly started going to parties and staying out late because she was eager to leave her parents' house. At one point, she even stopped going to school. Ebie was acting rebellious, and her family didn't like this quick change, but they still wanted her to come back. It's too bad that Ebie would never get that chance. Ebie skipped school on October 21st, 2015, and went to a party the next day, sometime in the evening. She didn't tell her family where she was going, though. Something terrible and sad would happen to Ebie because of this party. When Ebie got home the next day, she wasn't herself at all. She was scared and shaking a lot. Ebie couldn't hold back the truth when her dad asked her what had happened. Ebie told Michael through tears that someone used her at the party. To make things even worse, Ebie said that 4 men had done this horrible thing and that these bad young men had filmed it all. It makes me so very, very angry just to hear about this. I can't even begin to guess how Michael must have felt. Michael said that calling the cops was the first thing that should be done, and he was right. He talked to Ebie, but she wanted to think about it some more first, so she went to sleep. Later, Ebie said that she had told 2 of the bad guys that she would call the cops on them if they hurt her. It sounds a bit like Ebie is saying "or else," but it's not clear what she wants from them. It seemed most likely that Ebie wanted them to get rid of any proof that the attack happened, especially the video footage. But this is just a guess. No matter what happened, Ebie went to her grandparents' house after her talk with Michael and the threats against her attackers to calm down, get stronger, and get her facts straight. She spent the day with her grandparents. Around 7:50 p.m., she texted Michael that she was ready to call the police about the attack and wanted him to go with her. Michael agreed. Her grandparents didn't know what Ebie was going through, so she said goodbye to them and drove off to her mom's house. Ebie never got there, though it seems. Sadly, that was the last time Michael and Lori saw Ebie. They became very worried very quickly. Michael and Lori were naturally scared when they hadn't heard from Ebie in several hours. Ebie wouldn't do that. When they thought about what had just happened in her life, they were scared and didn't know what to do next. It was clear that what happened to Ebie had scared her, but there was no sign that she would do something dangerous like run away or something worse. Michael and Lori called Ebie several times, but she never picked up. Ebie caused a lot of worry for everyone. There's no sign of her at home, at her grandparents' house, or even at the police station. Where was she? So, on October 24th, the next day, Ebie's brother Trevor got a call. She sent it from Ebie. Trevor remembers that Ebie sounded very strange, like she wasn't sure where she was. When he asked her where she was, Ebie said she was outside his house. Trevor went outside, though, and didn't see anyone. It sounded like Ebie was also scared and didn't know where she was, according to Trevor. Ebie told Trevor that she was in her car before hanging up, which was the only thing Trevor could fully understand. Trevor called Ebie again, but she wouldn't answer, and this time she wouldn't. After that, no one ever heard from her again. This is when things really went crazy for Ebie's family. Something was very wrong with her radio quiet, the strange phone call, and the way Ebie sounded on the call. At this point, Ebie's parents called the cops, but did not tell them what had happened at the party. After this, they had to say that Ebie was lost. When the police heard that Ebie was 18 and acting out, they quickly put her on a list of people who had run away. It didn't seem to bother the cops at all that an 18-year-old girl had gone missing. They told the parents to wait another 12 hours before they would officially start an investigation. Anyway, when Ebie's parents saw that the cops weren't going to do anything, they put up flyers and went door to door asking everyone for help. Something wasn't found for 3 days. One of the security guards at Shalomont Park found an abandoned Volkswagen Passat on October 27th. The park is in West Little Rock, which is a bit of a remote place. There was a forest area with a lot of building going on all around it. The car was found close to these trees, and it was quickly determined to be Ebie's. After waiting for 2 hours, the security guard called the police to report the abandoned car that had been there for 2 or 3 days. No cop showed up, though. The man then called the police again. It took an hour for the police to arrive at the park and take a report about the car. The cops looked more closely and saw that the car's battery was dead and the petrol tank was empty. The fact that the key was still in the ignition shows that it had been going for a long time before it ran out of gas. The car's inside was a mess. Things that belonged to Ebie were found in the car, like her phone, keys, cash, contact lenses, and more. Makeup was also all over the seats. Ebie loved makeup, and she took great care of her things as if they were her most valuable things. Even Ebie's mom said she would never leave her things like this, unsupervised and thrown around like this. Especially her expensive makeup, so seeing them strewn around the car like they didn't care was very suspicious. The trouble was that Ebie was still missing, even though her car had been found. The cops were still sure that Ebie had just run away. But how did she get away without her car? Why did she leave it running? Police didn't even stop to talk to anyone who was walking by or look at the surveillance footage of the area. There was nothing that the cops did that could have led to answers. Things were getting really strange. Why didn't the police seem interested? I'm sure you can picture how angry and upset Ebie's family and friends were. The police were meant to help them, but it looked like they didn't care much about finding Ebie. What made things even worse was that the cops left the car doors and trunk open when they were done with their investigation. They left the door wide open and the car unlocked, and then they drove off. Not long after that, it rained hard, which filled the car with water and ruined any proof or clues that might have been there. People were very worried and confused because the cops weren't interested in looking into Ebie's disappearance. The cops should have done something about it, right? The community had to deal with it later because they were too busy putting things together on their own. There was no way the cops could not do it. Someone had to. The things that happened to Ebie's parents were sure to have happened near where her abandoned car was found. What's really interesting is that the cops started to say they had already searched the area with cadaver dogs for clues. I'm not accusing them of lying or anything, but I just can't believe this. Why? Because the cops couldn't have been less interested in this case up until this point. With this in mind, why would they have spent time and money looking with sniffer dogs if they weren't interested and thought Ebie had gotten away? I can't make sense of it. In their defense, I was able to find a few pictures of the search, but we still don't know how big it was or where all the detectives looked. So, the people from the area, along with family and friends, decided to look for themselves. Now, on the night that Ebie was meant to drive from her grandparents' house to her mom's, she was caught texting someone, or more than one person. After choosing to report the assault, Ebie texted two of the people she thought were responsible and told them she was going to call the police. Michael thought that Ebie might have asked these guys for the video of that bad thing that happened. She might have been gathering proof so the cops would believe her. We really don't know, as we already said. Even scarier was the fact that Ebie made 2 one-minute calls to 911 after sending these texts to the guys. The Little Rock Police Department doesn't have a record of Ebie calling them, so we don't know what she said. This is another strange part of the case. There's no doubt that these calls happened. Where did the written or recorded things go? Things were becoming more and more strange. Naturally, people thought that the 4 strange men who had attacked Ebie at the party were the ones who had taken her away. When Ebie said she would call the cops on the men, they might have felt threatened. This could be why Ebie was nowhere to be found. But how did these young guys get to her grandparents' house? Could it be that Ebie had set up a meeting with one or more of these young guys that day at the park? The police were looking into Ebie's missing in their own way, whatever that really meant. At the same time, Ebie's family, friends, and people in the community were searching in the wooded area and the park where her car had been left behind. People searched the area just feet away from where Ebie's car was found because she hadn't been seen in almost a month. When Ebie's best friend's mom, Margie Foley, called the cops, she told them that there was a very bad smell coming from a drain near where Ebie's car was. A lot of other people in the search also said this. People couldn't even stand near the drain for more than a second because it smelt so bad. But what did the cops do? Of course not. The cops told Margie and other people that their worries were unimportant and that it was probably a dead animal or something in the drain.
She said she smelled something decomposing, and she was worried that that may be related to the case somehow.
You could tell from the phone call that the cops were bored, not interested, and not bothered by the information. This is why I don't understand why the locals didn't try to look down the drain. It's possible that it was too risky for some reason. It was just a drain, so you never know what you might find down there. We were all scared, though, because of the smell and the police's lack of action. People in the neighborhood, onlookers, and even people who lived nearby said the smell was nauseating. It smelt awful, but the cops didn't seem to mind because that's how drains always smelt to them. This is what the police officer is said to have said. Drains always smell like that. But anyway, let's get back to the investigation. The police say they questioned the 4 guys who they say attacked Ebie after several people told them they were worried. When people in the community learned that Ebie had talked to the people who took her the night before she went missing, they put pressure on the police to question them and look into them further. Yes, the cops did question them, but they didn't really get to know them and didn't even search their cell phones. What I can tell is that they just asked the guys, "Did you do it?" That was it. The men said no. But if you remember, Ebie's incident was recorded, so it must have been on one of the men's phones or in their possession, right? But the police didn't stop to look for the recording. Their efforts to find it were non-existent for a whole second. They didn't do anything at all. At this point, the detectives weren't even trying to figure out Ebie's case. It's so frustrating that they were careless and ignorant from the start. It's really hard to picture yourself as Ebie's parents. They needed to know. Law enforcement did nothing while they were looking for them, even though it is their job to help solve crimes and keep Little Rock safe for everyone who lives there. But, as someone who used to live in a nearby town, this is pretty much how Little Rock is. The crime there doesn't happen. After 2 years, no one still knew where Ebie had gone, which you might not believe. The case was pretty much over. There were no leads, no movement, nothing. When the Steppatch family put out a $50,000 reward for any tips or good information about Ebie's whereabouts, it didn't help. In December 2017, Ebie's family even went on the Dr. Phil show to talk about her absence and the case's progress. The police's efforts to solve Ebie's case broke her parents' hearts and turned them off. She wasn't the kind of girl who would run away. She wasn't in the best of places at the time of the case, but she was trying to get back on her feet and make plans for the future. Ebie's parents are going through a lot of trouble because their daughter went missing, and all the questions that haven't been answered are hanging over their heads like a scary monster. When Ebie's family saw all of this, they hired TJ Ward as a private detective. If you're interested in real crime, you already know this name. In the case of Natalie Holloway, TJ Ward was also the private detective, which is just as strange and creepy. He had worked on Natalie's case for more than 12 years and had been a lawyer for over 40 years. The case of Ebie was in good hands, which made her family feel better. TJ Ward was the first person to talk to the security guard at Shalomont Park. This is the same guard who found Ebie's car parked near the woods. As a witness, the police didn't even ask him. It was that easy for the Little Rock PD guy, the security guard, told TJ that he had seen Ebie at the park before and that she was with a guy 3 times. She and the man seemed close, and they would hug and kiss each other from time to time. It turned out that this man was Eric, Ebie's boyfriend. When the police called Eric, he confirmed that he had met Ebie more than once in the park. He also said that Ebie came to see him the night she went missing, which showed that she wasn't meeting one of her attackers there. It wasn't at all like that. Eric thought back to how Ebie looked upset and lost. It wasn't like she was shaking or having trouble, but she didn't look like herself either. Eric said that Ebie looked worried, like she knew something bad was about to happen. It's not clear if Eric knew that Ebie had been struck the night before. Like Ebie's friends and family, Eric wasn't a suspect because he was also worried about her and had a perfect excuse for what he did. Even though TJ was a skilled detective, Ebie's case ended in another dead end, 3 years after she went missing. The 4 men who were allegedly involved in Ebie's attack were highly suspected by everyone, but their names were never made public. However, the case was taken over by a different detective in 2018, almost 3 years after Ebie's weird absence. Bruce Hudson. Like everyone else, except the Little Rock Police Department, Tommy used to be a police officer. He thought Ebie's case was very strange. He went back to the spot where Ebie's car had been left behind. Tom went to Shalomont Park on May 24th, 2018, and went to the sewer close. A hole in the ground was part of this draining system. When the lid was lifted, you could see a ladder going down and a thin pipe at the end. It was about 1 foot wide and 80 feet deep. For Ebie's small size, that tiny pipe would have been very hard to get through. In any case, Tommy was interested in this drainage system. It didn't look like something he could ignore, so he called his team and poked and prodded the 80-foot-long pipe. The prods hit something 70 feet down. It was getting in the way. To get a better look, Tommy told them to dig up the pipe. Not long after, the pipe was dug up. The agent looked in from the back of the pipe and saw skeletal remains of people were found in this small drain pipe. Everybody was very close to having their worst fears come true, but the bodies had to be tested before anyone could say for sure what they were. The cops took the body parts in and were sure they belonged to Ebie Steppatch, who was 18 years old. Her family was broken up by this news. For 3 years after Ebie went missing, The cops kept ignoring the case, which led to this tragic ending. Even stranger is the fact that strange and stinky smells were coming from the same drain 3 years ago, almost a month after Ebie went missing. But the cops did nothing. Ebie was there the whole time. But if you thought that was angry enough, wait until you hear what the police in Little Rock had to say about it. When Ebie's body was found 3 years later, it was in a very bad state, making it hard to figure out how she died. The cops are either not letting anyone see this information or they haven't bothered to check. But according to the news, we still don't know how or why Ebie died or what happened to her. It's also hard to tell what was in her body when she died because she is so decomposed. A few ideas have been put forward about how Ebie got into this pipe in the first place. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Ebie never got to call the police to report the assault, so other than what she told her stepdad Michael, there wasn't much evidence that identified the person who might have hurt her. Ebie had been found, but not in the way that everyone had hoped. Ebie was put to rest soon after her body was found in the pipe. A lot of people, including myself, think that Ebie's claimed attackers were the ones who killed her. When they found out that Ebie was going to report them, they tricked her into thinking they were going to give her the video. That's when they killed her and dumped her body in the drain. Over the years that she was stuck there, heavy rain and a lot of water pushed her deeper into the drain. A lot of people believe this to be the most likely explanation. I think it's the only one that makes sense, wholeheartedly. We have a reason, the means, and the chance. There's been no sign that the security guard was watching that evening, so Ebie would have been all by herself after Eric left the park that day. It was the right time for that kind of crime to happen. People think that the mysterious suspects are still out there because they are related to powerful people, like politicians or police officers. This could explain why the police weren't interested in solving Ebie's case and how badly they messed everything up. It all makes sense. Someone's son who is a police officer does something bad, but his dad and his dad's friends hide it. It is a classic. It's easy. This is likely the truth. What about the police? They have their own crazy ideas. They believe that Ebie killed herself by crawling into the drain pipe after the claimed attack. This idea is crazy from the start. To begin, the sewer cover is very heavy. Ebie's size and weight made it impossible for her to lift the lid, crawl into the vent, close the lid, and then belly crawl into the foot-wide pipe. She was way too little. The girl was only 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed only 110 pounds when she was wet. A normal manhole cover weighs over 100 pounds, so it couldn't have been possible. Second, Ebie didn't seem like she was going to end everything. When someone is going through a dark time, there are almost always signs. Ebie even had plans to go get ice cream with her friend that night after she told the cops about what happened. It is impossible to believe that Ebie would do something like that. After everything is said and done, the cops have shown no interest in finding the person who killed Ebie. But I think we all know for sure who did this. Getting the right people on board will make these people pay. Answers should be given to Ebie's family. It's been too long. For the Steppatch family, though, the terrible things that happened were not quite over. Because not long after they lost Ebie, her brother Trevor had a heart attack out of the blue and died. In two of the worst ways possible, Ebie's mother lost 2 children. Things are not fair for the Steppatch family right now. There isn't a bright side. Right now, there is no time to rest. It only hurts and hurts. What a terrible hurt. The Arkansas Attorney General's office set up a cold case unit at the start of 2024. That's the only good thing that could come out of this. Anyone know if Ebie's case has made any progress since this task group was formed? They have confirmed that they are working on it, though. I just pray that Ebie's family will be able to find peace with their loss given enough time, hope, and prayers. And may the person or people who caused this girl's pain one day have to deal with the full anger of God. Thank you for watching. If Ebie's story moved you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to help keep her memory alive and support the search for justice in cases like hers. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice helps keep these stories from being forgotten. Until next time, stay aware, stay compassionate, and never stop seeking the truth.